Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Not Just Politics podcast. As you can see, today we are in a new space. I am graduating in 2 days. When you guys see this, I will have already have graduated, which means I have left Point Park. The great journey has come to an end. And, you know, this is the biggest podcast in the world, as I've said many times. And I think if I just keep saying it, maybe one day it'll be true. But either way, we've just grown so much. The show is so much bigger than when we started. And we just thought, you know, we're not going to be able to use the studio at Point Park forever. So we have to potentially get somewhere else to go. And, you know, Roku City is like the next Austin, Texas. It's the next LA, whatever you want to call it. Roku City is going to be the next big home for podcasting. Joe Rogan said it himself. He's building a new club in Roku City, except it's not for comedy. It's only for podcasting. The club will have 800 different podcast studios. And so we're here early. We're trying to get on the ground level. So this is our new studio in Roku City. Welcome to Roku City. We will be broadcasting here from now on. Now to get into today's program, this is slightly old news, but its age does not diminish how legendary it is. There were two gentlemen who were caught trespassing into PPG Place. For those who don't know or have just maybe seen the skyline of Pittsburgh, PPG Place is the big glass castle-looking building. It's very close to Point Park. It's right next to Market Square. It is one of the cooler buildings, I'd say, on the skyline. But for people, if you just look at the skyline, what you don't see is there's a sort of a whole compound in there. You know, Gavin said it the other day. There's a whole stretch of things. It's not just that one building. So anyway, apparently these gentlemen trespassed into PPG Place and base jumped off the fourth story of one of those roofs and landed near Market Square. And we have an article here, an updated article from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It says this was updated last on April 16th, just so everybody knows. It is the 24th. So again, a little old on this story, but it's just so funny. We just still giggling about it. The men entered a building in one PPG Place near Stanwyck Street and 3rd Avenue and made their way to the rooftop before jumping off with parachutes. The base jumping incident happened at approximately 4:45 a.m. on April 9th and was caught on surveillance cameras. And then this is my favorite part. This, I think, is the best part. The pair landed safely in the lower parking lot of the former Civic Arena, got into separate cars, and drove off. They identified themselves to police later that day. Police filed disorderly conduct and defiant trespassing charges. They ultimately pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct and paid $98.50 in fines and court costs.
$98? Only $98. That's insane. Again, like, you probably just bought your tickets for that experience, essentially.
Right.
Like, oh, you can't do it for free. It's only just less than $100. Sign me up.
That's the thing. What if people see this and are they going to start going, well, hey, it's only a $100 fine. You want to get some money, save up some cash. Why don't we go get some parachutes?
It's for a good cause. Maybe if the city was like, oh, maybe we'll go around fixing the potholes around downtown with this money that we collect.
Right. Let's put this in the framework of new media. Let's put this in this fake fucking world that we've made. Let's put it in the world of collabs and partnerships and sponsoring content. Let's put it in those terms. They just need a partnership where they just get some crazy guy to help people undergo this experience. Disorderly conduct, trespass, jump off, land on Stanwyck Street.
Insane stunts that would be very harmful if you're not a trained professional.
and then charge people the fine for it. Just have the police there at the landing area. Make it like an attraction, basically set up a business. Have them just base jump off and land, and then the police go, all right, and they hold up the card reader, and then you just scan the card, you pay the fine, and then you go on your way. And then, yes, you're right, they take that money and they fix the potholes with it. They repave the road.
Yeah, and then you can turn it into a movie like that guy that walked across the Twin Towers.
That's correct. Yes, Red Bull should absolutely be involved in this. It should be a spectacle. No, it should be a spectacle. We have to remember, we have to lean into where we are a little bit here, right? We have to remember that we are living in an optics-based society. Everything is
right. Like as soon as like the governor's mansion gets burned down, he goes to Hershey, right? He films TikTok in Hershey to boost morale.
Correct. And we do. Oh, what a good segue, Gavin. That was wonderful. And this is not funny news, but this is old news at this point. Governor Josh Shapiro's house was torched by a guy. We're not giving him a free plug on this show. Oh, yeah. You can go look up his name. But this was almost 2 weeks ago at this point, right? I've pulled this up as well.
Yeah, roughly 2 weeks ago.
It was on April 12th. It was right over. It was, I believe, during Passover. Mm-hmm. Even the governor and his family just celebrated Passover, and on the evening of April 12th, this happened. I guess evening of April 12th, early morning of the 13th. A man, I guess, scaled. And there's actually I guess there's an investigation being done into this, the security investigation, because the governor's house obviously has security. This guy somehow scaled the fence and he wasn't detected, and he was able to smash a window and apparently threw 2 Molotov cocktails inside of the house. Luckily, the governor and his family were not harmed. They were escorted out by first responders before anything, too disastrous happened. But I don't know. That's where we're at. We got, and this, so then the initial thought is obviously what's the political, leaning to this guy, this, that, the other thing. It's kind of tough to say. It does kind of seem political at this point, no matter which way you look at it. But according to, the article that I read, which I forget what source it was from exactly, I'm going to try to find it again. The guy had kind of turned himself in the same day, and apparently had mentioned to the police that this was all over Shapiro's stance on Israel and Palestine and that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily because he's a Democrat or anything like that, right? Who knows if it's even again, this is where those lines get kind of blurry in the cultural conversation, which is he did it because he's upset at Shapiro's stance on Israel, not necessarily because Shapiro and his family are Jewish, right? I didn't see that mentioned anywhere. I did hear that it was because of his stance on that conflict. So
right,
that's where it gets messy. Is can you can't
understand crazy people either. It's very difficult to understand the motives of a crazy person.
Yes, that is also true. But that's where the conversation gets kind of blurry, because some people interpret criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic, but then some people draw that line and they say, no, you can criticize the government without hating, all the people. It's, I guess, a similar situation whenever you talk about really any dictatorship or a country like China or North Korea. I don't think anyone has malice towards the Chinese people or the North Korean people, right? It's the governments that are a problem. So I think that gets a part of maybe the things get a little bit messy whenever that stuff starts to get thrown in. But either way, we are happy that the governor and his family were not harmed. Josh Shapiro is very popular in this state, right? He has bipartisan support, from what I understand.
Yes,
and defended Punxsutawney Phil. Said because again, I think we sort of reported on this a little bit, that somebody was trying to get rid of Punxsutawney Phil. There was some proposal, I guess, of some sort, and Josh Shapiro shut that down real quick. He was like, if you want to get to Phil, you got to go through me. And it's, But anyway, like Gavin said, the next week after this guy's house gets burned down, He's in Hershey, Pennsylvania at
I don't
the
even think it was the next week. I think it was only like a couple days.
Right. It was very recent.
Like,
can we try to find that? Can we try to put that post in?
Oh yeah.
He goes to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and how do you even explain anything about, like, how do you explain the viral sound? It's like an AI voice, and it's this really shitty sounding AI voice, and like there's weird pauses in the sentences, and for some reason this is like the new trending. This is what the trending meme sounds are like now.
Oh yeah, the TikTok like voices.
Yeah, like the deep voiced kind of guy that does the whole thing, and it's annoying to listen to. But apparently, that's how you blow up on. And we're going to talk about all of this later in the program too. But Josh Shapiro's in Hershey, Pennsylvania, posing up with the Hershey Kiss and the chocolate bar and whoever else they got.
This is what people don't understand about political violence. So who think political violence is the only way for change? It's not. It only makes these people more powerful in their messages.
Yeah, that's all correct. Yes,
like,
that is an unfortunate...
dictator. Even if they're a dictator or not, just any politician in general. Like,
yes,
you try to like destroy their career or whatever, or like kill them or anything like that. That only makes them look stronger.
Yes.
So
yeah, it does. That's a good point.
But for Josh Shapiro, he just goes to Hershey.
Right, precisely.
That is the sign of strength in Pennsylvania.
Josh Shapiro
is thugging that shit out, going to Hershey with the fam. Is
to the stuff your cup thing where you can get the 1 pound. Have you seen that?
Yes.
It's a national security threat.
It's purely American.
It's the most American thing. But anyway, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, a lot of times, well, that is. Listen, it's tough to attribute, numbers to things like this, but it definitely made Trump stronger going into the 2024 election, right? Anytime violence like that is used, yes, you're right, it is, especially if that group or individual is really ideologically captured, then yeah, they'll use it as an excuse. They'll use it to turn that situation into the enemy.
Right.
And they'll do the whole thing. They'll spin it up. And I was talking to a friend about this last week. It's tough because at some point, if the situation gets so bad, then does political violence eventually have to be considered? Maybe. I don't think we're there yet. Neither did this friend that I was talking to. I really don't believe that we're there yet. I still believe that. Now,
even if it's a dictatorship like Mussolini, like even if you try to kill him, it only makes him stronger as well.
Yeah, that's true. But it did eventually get overthrown.
Well, yeah.
It was eventually undone through violence at the end of the day.
Right.
But you are right, though. Like, it did. There were people that resisted in many places like that. And it does make the party in power stronger. Opposition breeds the opportunity to increase security and do all sorts of stuff. So it's tricky. I thought it was very cool that Dave McCormick wrote an essay for the Free Press saying that, this is unacceptable. Neither side of the political spectrum owns violence. It's just not true. So I thought that was cool that he said that. It was cool that it did seem like, for the most part, the system reacted in a pretty healthy way to this one, right? He's not a figure, like, he's a Democrat, but he's not a figure, like, I know Trump's not a Democrat, but he's not like a figure, he's not a Trump-like figure in our politics. He doesn't really seem to play that game. He seems to honestly... Like, there are governors that try to get the spotlight. DeSantis had like a 3-year run where the guy was just getting headlines all the time, and then he kind of disappeared. But governors can certainly get themselves in that position if they want to. Shapiro hasn't really seemed to do that all that much.
Right. Well, yeah, that's probably why they don't want to fall under that category of like a Gavin Newsom or...
Right, who doesn't believe in anything.
Right.
Who has zero beliefs, right? Like Josh Shapiro, for whatever criticisms, does seem to have beliefs, right? Does seem to stand for things. There are people in the Democratic Party like Gavin Newsom who just, as Tim Dillon said, he's just going wherever the wind takes him. He's just floating, trying to find where the cultural consensus is at any given time. And he's podcasting now.
I saw that Josh Shapiro was on a podcast recently as well.
Yes, I did see that as well. I don't remember which podcast it was, and I don't remember what exactly. I'd have to watch that. I forget which one it was, but he did do a pod. And it wasn't one of like the huge one, but I had like a couple 500,000
Oh yeah,
views.
it was another one of those like frat bro kind of type.
Yeah, it's not as many views
vibe
as we
I
get
got.
though.
Oh yeah, they definitely don't have the Paul brothers as their fans. So.
No, they don't have the Paul brothers as fans. But yes, anyway, sorry, we don't want to go on about this for too much longer. It's just unfortunate when you see these kinds of things. I will never advocate for them because it's not something that a healthy society should. It's the same reason why, for as much as I agree with everyone's frustrations or many people's frustrations over the healthcare system, it's why I didn't and still don't and will not celebrate Luigi Mangione. It's not, do we need systemic change? That seems pretty obvious to me at this point. Something has to change. The system doesn't work for the people that it's supposed to work for. But I think we got a little too excited we like glorified him a little bit too much. And to be fair, I don't think anybody glorified this. That really wasn't something that happened, which is good. So I'm not saying that, but it is something like that. You can't cheer for this stuff. It was like I was in a class this semester and I had to try to like explain to one of my classmates that it wasn't ethically okay to set Teslas on fire just because you don't like Elon Musk. You can't advocate for these kinds of things because civil society exists for a reason. So anyway, don't go throwing Molotov cocktails through people's windows that you disagree with. Listen, I understand that, and we haven't really talked about it much on this show, but the situation over in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis. It's some staggering, and I don't know, again, and this is where I have to be careful because I haven't been there, I haven't done the whole thing, but it's some large part of the Gaza Strip that's just uninhabitable now. And so, people are going to feel very strongly about that. I understand, but I don't think the solution is throwing a Molotov cocktail through the governor's window. Is that crazy to say? Does that make me a crazy person or what? Where are we at? I feel like the more I've learned, the less I know.
Who knows anymore?
Who knows where we're at? I was kind of like, like a coworker that was like, we were going back and forth about like what way we should use to exterminate all the billionaires. And I was just like, okay. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. That just went right through the microphone. I was in advanced radio production. I should know these things. Not meaning to keep us on unfortunate news here, but Pope Francis did pass away. R.I.P. to Pope Francis. It's an unfortunate day. I haven't really talked about this on the show much, but I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic kindergarten through 8th grade, and then I did public high school. So I grew up in Christianity. I strayed away from it, as my parents also did, and my brother did as well. But I'm still a spiritual person, but I don't, there's a lot of problems and, that we don't even have to say because everyone talks about those, right? But there's also, I guess, just broader like ideological problems that I started to have with the church and stuff like that. But anyway, all this just to say that I was not really connected to Christianity like I used to be. But this is, it is an important like event happening in the world. I mean, the Pope is, and I think I was talking to my dad about this. I don't, maybe you can correct me if you think I'm wrong about this, but to me, it seems like the most influential and yet least political voice in the world, if that makes sense. Like the Pope does not He's the most famous person in the world, right? Just because of how popular Christianity is as a religion, but also
like not non-influencer as well. We gotta mention that for our Gen Alpha audience.
oh yes, right. I mean, but I even think then like he's bigger than any influencer. He's bigger than any of these people. You're the Pope of the Catholic Church.
True. But does he have over 100 million subscribers on YouTube?
What are his brand deals?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. We have to put this in the language. We have to put this in new. Right. So the Pope is
new media,
sort of like
Carson.
an influencer, right? Is he right? Rest in peace to Pope Francis. But anyway, but he's like that's a very popular position in the world. Like he holds a lot of weight. You know, he's spent. I believe I don't know exactly how long he spent doing this, but he was a very big advocate for a peace solution in Gaza, and he was a humanitarian advocate. He's taken the church in a much more progressive direction. Some people are happy about that, some are not. We'll see what happens. The conclave, which is a fascinating, process, just an international thing that goes on. I believe it said something like it starts 15 or 20 days after he's passed. So within the next week or so, the conclave will begin. And there was a couple of different bishops that have sort of been cardinals. I mean, that should have been probed to be the next pope. Some would take the church in a more conservative direction. Some would be taking the church in a progressive direction again. So it's just interesting to look at. It's interesting to see. It's unfortunate. He had just, gotten over I believe a month-long battle or a multiple month-long battle with double pneumonia.
Yeah.
Where he was like still doing sermons in the hospital because he's a beast. And
then he fell for the oldest trick in the book. He shook JD Vance's hand with the little like buzzer. Like right. The oldest trick and then dead. Like dude. There's something, and again, I don't know how much I believe in fate and all that, whatever, that kind of stuff. But it is just interesting. He passed away the Monday after Easter. He stuck around. My grandfather, my dad's dad, they were very devoutly Christian people. They protested the abortion clinic on Liberty Avenue, like right next to my apartment. They went down there every Sunday to protest or whatever it was, like however long they went down there. And he passed away a year ago, right around this time. And he passed away on Good Friday. And there was just something about that, whatever you want to call it, symbolic or, whatever it is, right? That such a devoutly Christian man passes on Good Friday. And is sort of an interesting, similar situation here with Pope Francis. Passed away the Monday after Easter. Stuck around for the big day. Did the thing, I guess. I don't know. I mean, from what I understand, he was like still being the Pope. Yeah, I mean, he did have that photo shoot with Vance too.
Dude, he had the photo shoot with Vance. And of course that meme is like, right, yeah, the whole meme that, the Pope
and of course it has to be out of anybody.
Of course it has to be JD Vance. A guy that just made himself look so, and again, we're going to talk about, I don't mean to keep putting this off, but we are going to talk about this next, I think. I got to get this out of my system. The guy just made himself look so popular on all these podcasts. So popular, so reasonable. And then all of a sudden, he comes out and just has such contempt for our European allies. It doesn't make any sense to me. The guy is just grouchy. And the Pope had to deal with a meeting with him. Could you have, by the way, I mean, I'm sorry. But again, I don't call myself a Christian. Could you imagine the guy, the head guy in your religion, the guy that you believe is appointed by God to lead the flock, has called you in because you're a problem? And then you are going to have the gall, you know what I mean? Like, Trump would be like, but the Pope, what a loser that guy is. He, like, whenever he's on the, you ever notice when he's on the stage, he kind of like, He kind of like moves a little bit.
That's the whole.
He kind of does this
the
whole like,
Trump-ness.
Kamala.
Like that's the whole act. That's the whole shtick. Like that's
Right,
just like the. It's the movements with the hands.
It's the whole thing, but
the voice.
He also kind of like leans
it's the
in.
hair.
He does
It's the way. Yeah, it's his whole aura. It's the Trump aura. You cannot escape it when he is around. You put any camera on him, he is aura farming 24/7.
And that's a term that our Gen Alpha audience will. Do we have a Gen Alpha audience?
Well,
definitely
with
not.
time,
Right? With time, we will. For the Gen, anyone Gen Z or younger understands.
We might with the way Gen Alpha is being raised with tablets and phones and
who knows,
screens immediately.
Kids should not be. This is not a program for this is not a children's program we're running here. We've never claimed it to be that. It's what I mean. But anyway, so it's just. But he is just up there, kind of doing the thing at the podium, and you can tell whenever he goes off script and he just like starts talking shit, and he's like, Kamala was a disaster. What a loser she was. The economy, and then he's just right back into his speech. It's crazy. But yeah, so it's just that's what I wish to God he would have just gone back into reality television after that first presidency.
But would you really rather have Kamala Harris?
Well, no, it's not that I would rather have Kamala Harris. It's just that I think he's so goddamn funny. I just don't want him being president necessarily. Like, I just don't really...
Alternate reality, they both dropped out, Kamala and Trump, and they started their own reality TV show together.
With, like, a companion podcast that they also host.
Yes.
Something like that. No, you're right though. I was talking to a friend about that. There is an alternate reality where the guy just never got into politics, or I think honestly, do one presidency and get out. Hollywood would have forgotten about all the stuff once they saw how much money they could. Make with
that, and they would be like, that guy was the president once. What a joke! That was so funny. Remember that time?
Right? They would be like joke. They would like joke about January 6th to him. They would, because like again, they could not have less of a fixed idea of anybody or anything in that. The whole world is pretending. That's the whole point of the thing. So I wish it would have just been in reality TV, because he's just so effortlessly funny. I mean, did you hear what he said about Mike Huckabee? He appointed Mike Huckabee to Israel, and he was like, Mike is great. Mike is going to bring home the bacon. And then he goes, although bacon isn't too popular in Israel, I guess I should clarify that.
At least he's aware. At least he's like somewhat aware. More than Biden is.
It was one of his better jokes in a while. But anyway, yeah, so... is that really all we were discussing with that particular? I was gonna do a segue, but it's one of my segues. It's like a hard pivot. It's distracting, and no one knows what's going on. Konstantin Kisin, actually, I guess let me preface it with this. A while back, friend of the show Claire Ashcraft wrote a blog, which I'll put on the Google Doc because I want to put it on the screen here. It was called "Anti-Woke Liberals Became the Thing That They Hated." Was the sort of whole idea of the article. And it was talking about how there was a group of people that emerged in the 2016 to 2020 sort of time frame that were on the left but had been sort of ousted whenever there was that very weird period in that time whenever the cultural left went really far on a lot of stuff. And again, when we say really far on stuff politically, we're obviously talking about the confines of the United States of America, right? When you look at the world stage, our Democrat Party is just another right-wing party at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, they even said they're capitalists, right? Like, they're not willing to move economically any further to the left. So they were going culturally further to the left, pushing things like defunding the police, abolishing the police, going on and on with just some of the stuff that most.
But that sounds like it's just eating themselves alive with that.
Well, that's absolutely what it did. It did eat them alive, and I think that's kind of what one of the problems that in the 2020 election was, or the 2024 election was that whole thing's kind of ate itself. But in the process of that whole thing happening, there was a group of people that were still on the left, that still espoused left-wing ideas, that said, hey, we're still on the left. We're not going to the right. But whatever this thing is, right? Call it wokeism, call it whatever you'd want to call it. I don't even want to use that word anymore because the meaning has been completely diluted and ruined. I don't even know what it means anymore. But whatever that thing was, there was this group of people that sort of stood up to it, and a lot of them got ousted from their positions, professionally. Barry Weiss, one of these people, famously left, left the New York Times, I believe is who she wrote for, and then started the Free Press, and people like Brett and Eric Weinstein. I always forget which one it is because they're not related to Harvey. It's like the last name is spelled the same way, but it's pronounced different. They're not related. People like the guys at Trigonometry, like Konstantin Kisin, who's the guy that wrote this article that I want to talk about. They sort of became this group that was pushing back against the stuff that the left was doing. And I used to support and agree with a lot of those people on a lot of stuff. And then over time, it seems like those people just became what they had accused the left of doing, right? They became overly skeptical and overly mistrusting of any forms of authority. They advocated for the censoring and silencing of some speech whenever they had previously claimed that they were the ones being censored and advocated against that kind of thing. And the sort of culture of that space adopted a lot of the qualities that they claimed that the left had that they didn't really like. And so Claire wrote about that. It has like over 10,000 views on Substack now. It really blew up. But anyway, Konstantin Kisin wrote this article in the Free Press. And unfortunately, it's paywalled. Again, capitalists, paywalling everything. It's fine. But I just wanted to read a couple of the highlights that they posted on the Instagram page that they'd posted, a couple of excerpts from this. And his whole argument is that and this is, I guess, sort of a more of a general, broader conversation too, is that the podcasting industry is on the brink of some sort of crisis. It seems a crisis in confidence. And this is something that the point being made by Konstantin Kisin I want to talk about. He said, the great trick being deployed here is to allege that experts can't be trusted while relying on a different set of experts that agree with you, or that affirm your worldview. And it's a really good point. I think it's a larger problem that the podcasting industry is facing. I've supported podcasting a lot on this show. Obviously, we're doing a podcast right now. I've leveled many criticisms at the legacy media, and I would continue to do so. But it would be unfair of me to not also point out the very obvious and I've talked about some of them before, but it would be very unfair of me to not talk about the many obvious problems that podcasting and new media have going on for them. And that is one of the problems right now. This group of people that was initially skeptical of the experts, I would like to say for at least good-intentioned reasons or, reasonable reasons, if that's even a thing you say, they have become skeptical of any and all forms of authority, no matter what they are. It just seems like if they see anything come from the establishment system, they immediately reject it, which I think is just the complete opposite. It's equally unhealthy and the opposite side of the coin as to blindly trust anything that the establishment tells you. They seem to now be the polar opposite of that. And I think that Joe Rogan has fallen. I would argue that Joe Rogan has fallen into that trap. The trigonometry guys have fallen into that trap. Lex Friedman, to a certain extent, has certainly fallen into that trap. And it's, and now there's this whole conversation after the Joe Rogan debate between Dave Smith and Douglas Murray, how Douglas Murray went on this 40-minute tirade about experts, this, and, should Should people be allowed to talk if they're not an expert and this, that, the other thing? And it's a very difficult, it's a very tricky conversation. And I don't know exactly what the solutions are, but what I do know is like there is, to a certain extent, listen, like I've advocated for free speech a lot on this show. We've had somebody from Fire, and I'm wearing their hat. So what other, Gavin, how many more free plugs how many more free plugs can we give out?
Well, I'm looking at the monthly quota, and it looks like...
Have we hit it yet?
No, we're still short of about any. So...
Wait.
Like, it's infinite amount of plugs. Like, there is no end to this.
Right. We'll do it forever.
So, like, if there is no end, like, it's just completely open. We're...
Okay. There's a lot of money-making potential. We'll have to look into that.
Yes.
But anyway, listen, I've advocated for free speech a lot on this show. I will continue to do so. I do think it's our most fundamental right that we have as Americans. But again, this is the question that I would raise. When you have a media ecosystem, which is serving as the town square, some people are calling podcasting the new front porch. It's the new sort of, hey, I'm just out here talking. If anybody wants to listen, gather around type thing. When you have a system like that, and it's all run, and the gatekeepers are algorithms.
And YouTube is the town square.
Right, exactly. These platforms are the town square. If you have the gatekeepers are algorithms, and if everybody is using this as a way of communicating and getting news and running business and doing all this stuff, and all of the algorithms are built on engagement and attention, maximizing engagement and attention, and they're only focused on those two things. How does the marketplace of ideas work? How does it work that the best idea would just win if my idea can be wrong and I can just package it prettier than you? The algorithm will reward me for that. So at the end of the day, and I brought this up at one of those Fire conferences I went to, and I got a little bit of pushback, but I'm kind of sticking to my guns here. I don't think the marketplace of ideas does work in the current media ecosystem that we have. So podcasting is gonna prevail. Like, if you want to stop podcasting from being what it is, you have like a couple choices. You have to either try to actually understand it, which the legacy media hasn't done. Apparently somebody from CNN, they sat down with Tim Dillon for an interview. And again, he's going on Rogan telling this story. Could he be making it up because he's a comedian? Yes. I would like to think that he's not. However, again, that would be me just blindly trusting, right? That's the kind of stuff you're going to have to reconsider now. Like, is Tim Dillon just telling a story because he's on a comedy podcast? Maybe. But his claim is that a reporter from CNN sat down with him and she was like, do you think that you and your friends are the new establishment? And he goes, well, there's 22 intelligence agencies. There's a whole legacy media. There's a whole financial system and Ivy League schools and everything. And he goes, do I think that Theo Von is the new establishment? No. But when you have a legacy media that's this out of touch, obviously, with this thing that they've claimed to be their enemy because they think that podcasters have all the power in the world, it's like, look at the system you've designed. You've designed a system where, of course, everyone's going to be distrustful, and of course, no one's going to get the truth because the algorithms don't prioritize the truth. The algorithms don't even prioritize like a one side versus the other kind of thing. Like, the algorithm doesn't promote you like two opposing videos of the same concept with of opposing viewpoints. It doesn't do that. It's only built on getting you to come back. That's why whenever people leave the recommended feed on for so long, it eventually starts to recommend you more and more extreme content, is not because the algorithm is trying to radicalize you. It's trying to give you content that it thinks that you will watch the most amount of possible and keep coming back.
Also, I think that's backfiring too, because
yes, it is.
When you look at YouTube, especially on certain devices, I know the algorithm works kind of differently depending on what device you're on.
Yeah, which like, even then, it's like
televisions are probably the worst. Like the built-in apps on a smart TV for YouTube is the worst I've seen. It's literally the same 15 to 20 videos repeated.
Right.
On every category, too. Somehow, on every recommended category. It's still the same 20 videos. Somehow.
It's just messy. So, like, podcasts don't... And, like, for anyone that, like, needs to hear this, podcasters don't have power, okay? It's, like, the same argument that comedians make. Like, You can sell out an arena, you can make jokes about whoever. It doesn't mean anything's really going to change. And yes, podcasts have the reach, they have the influence, right? Which I do think that a lot of podcasters should be more responsible with. And, you know, we're certainly trying to do that, you know, for whatever that's worth. But it just seems... It seems like it doesn't work. It seems like this is the only system that you can have, again, if this is the way the algorithms are built. And I went through 4 classes at this university. 4 classes, and we talked about algorithms barely.
How can you have a whole class on algorithms? By the time you're done with the class, the algorithm has already changed.
But that's the point of why you need it. You need something that teaches people. There are a lot of overlaps based on stuff that they look for and stuff they prioritize. That's why we should have a class on them, because that's the new gatekeepers of the whole system. That's how you go viral or not, is you use the algorithm. And you're right, they do change a lot. It would be a tough, you would have to, you know, I don't know how in depth it could actually get, but young people, before they, like, media literacy courses don't really, I didn't talk about algorithms in my media literacy course. We'd even talk about it in there. So if you're just a kid that can just get social media, that can just, you know, get around the parent password, whatever it is, that got Instagram. I knew kids when I was in 8th grade, there were kids in my class that had Instagram accounts. So you could just get on there and God knows what you could see, right?
Oh, yeah. Instagram back in the day was fucking chaos, bro.
But even now, you know, there's all these talks. We have all these endless news segments about young men radicalized, and there's not really a whole lot of conversation about. There's always this like morbid curiosity. It's this very surface level thing. No one's made any, like, where is the cultural pushback to change the algorithms? Where is that?
I mean, there are some niches, I guess you would say, like people, I mean, a lot of people don't like the current state of YouTube at all. They don't like the corporate take on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people don't. It just seems crazy to me that there isn't more of a mainstream conversation right now about reforming algorithms. That's the whole... It's one of the main reasons why the whole thing's working the way it's working. And you can just... And again, if you're not teaching media practitioners
people like seeing their brain rot. Like, people don't... That and, like,
yes,
people don't really care, too.
Listen, that's also a part of it. It's human nature. We're very tribal. You can very easily, you know, spur tribalism with these platforms. And yes, our brain likes content that's easy to process. It likes low.
But I will say a lot of people do understand that, like, these platforms have issues. Like,
no, I'm not saying that people don't understand they have issues. I'm saying, like, yeah, we know they have issues. Like, there should be more of a cultural conversation about, like, hey, we have to redo the algorithms. We have to try to do something to them.
Right.
Because they're not working. And
I don't know how you're going to get people, like, who are already in these, like, ideological bubbles in these communities, like on X or whatever, or on Reddit, like these people who are, like, hardcore driven to the right or to the left. And if you try to be like, hey, we're trying to implement these new algorithms where you're not going to be in these, like, you're not going to be, like, forced into these communities. You're not always going to get these tabloids recommended to you, like, every day.
Well, sure, then maybe some people will reject it, and that's fine. But some people might not.
Right.
And yeah, like, people could always go to another platform that still might end up doing it the way that it's currently being done. It just seems... I don't know. It just seems really frustrating. Like I went through 4 years of class.
The issue is, how do you get the common person to care? Every day.
Well, I think you have to educate them honestly about, like, how much.
But again, who wants to be educated?
I would like to think that. Well, I think, you know, we're creating a society that's increasingly built on media. We have to start educating the children. We have to start teaching them, like, hey, if you want to engage with this, I'm not saying that kids, because listen, like, Joe Rogan did make a good point. Tim Dillon was saying, like, what do you think about the whole Jonathan Haidt thing? You know, no social media until they're 16, that kind of thing. And Rogan goes, I don't know. He goes, I think it could be a mistake, because then the kid gets to be 16, 17, 18, and they have no idea how to navigate that space. So that could also be a problem. But again, unless you teach And again, as a media practitioner, like we talk about a lot at this school about how, you need the degree in order to do this work because then you know things that you wouldn't know otherwise and that kind of thing. And we all know that the algorithms kind of drive how everything works. But at the same time, like I wasn't taught the ins and outs of the algorithm. Like I could accidentally be boosting the wrong stuff, or I could be making content that's not in the right way that could be harmful. Like I think that's the one thing that we were never really taught. We were never really taught how to be responsible with the algorithms. We were only ever taught about it from a business perspective. Here's how to maximize this. Here's how to maximize that for engagement. But again, there was very little conversation about why that's the metric for the whole thing being built on in the first place. It doesn't make any sense if you're going to do news to be engaged, because then you put that on top of the 24-hour news cycle, and then people are just stuck trying to get the next viral big piece by putting something out every 5 minutes. And like, of course people are going to make mistakes and there's going to be problems. So I don't know, but it does seem like the podcasting industry is going to have to, these two forms of media have to figure it out. They have to sit down together and they have to try to figure it out. They cannot forever be adversaries. It's the fakest fight like you could come up with. Like at the end of the day, these two forces should be able to come together for maximum benefit. But the legacy media lost in what they're calling the podcast election, because Kamala Harris wouldn't accept any invites to go on podcasts and reach young men, which is a lot of the people that are listening to stuff like this. And they just think that podcasters have like all the power in the world. We don't. This is the biggest podcast in the world. We can't change anything if we wanted to. We can call the Paul brothers. That's about it. Am I wrong? There's nothing else we can do. So again, I don't know if I really have anything else to say about this. It's just very strange. And I'm becoming like a big, I guess, media literacy advocate. Because I haven't been the best about that in the past, and I'm sure I'll continue to make a mistake here and there.
Yeah, Carson, no more mistakes. If you do a mistake, if you do one more mistake, we need to get a new host. Like,
we'll have AI. Official. We'll have Sora.
Yeah.
Replace me as the host of the show. AI podcaster.
AI known not to make any mistakes.
Correct. AI, a flawless system. Correct. But anyway. And so I just think that should have been more of a thing. I'm a little bothered by the fact that I went through 4 years of classes at this school and we talked about media bias for one unit of one class one time. How is that? How? They talked about framing, priming, and agenda setting very early on. They didn't even mention them as forms of media bias. I don't know what the fuck they in Bernie's media and society class, which was a great class. And I know they mentioned those three things. For those that don't know, framing is like how a news source is going to, which parts of a story they're going to choose to cover, that kind of thing, how they're going to present the facts of a story. Agenda setting is like choosing what they're going to cover and not cover. You could call that like, bias by viewpoint emission is what All Sides calls it. And then there's priming, which is like you repeat the information over and over again so that the people have it really accessible in their brain. They start to view the world through that lens, whether you do it with wokeness or with race or, whatever it is. You look at the programming from these news sources. That's a lot of time what they're trying to do. But the problem is if you have an algorithm that's only based on engagement, priming and agenda setting are just a feedback loop, because you decide what we're going to talk about and you put it out there and then the algorithm rewards it. So then you keep doing it because it is rewarded, and then it becomes habitual to people. And then all you have to do is frame it in an ideological way, and then you've spread it. You've contributed to, I'm not meaning to be like these people are doing, but I'm just saying, like, if you're a young media practitioner and you do that without being taught about this stuff, then yeah, you're contributing to the creation of filter bubbles by doing that. And the fact that all of those dots were not connected a single time is very odd to me. It's very confusing. And
do you think if you ever like wrote like a paper on that and like had it sent to like anyone, like department heads?
Yeah, I've considered it. I might be going back to grad school, and if I do, then I'd be able to teach an undergraduate course Because I think those should be requirements, dude. Like, am I wrong about this? Like,
Oh, yeah.
How many elective classes did we take? We couldn't have fit 2 media bias classes in there, 2 algorithm classes. Like, you couldn't have fit any of that stuff in there. I get that they're not as concrete. The media bias one is. I get the algorithm one is a little tougher again because they changed so much. But again, that should be a point of discussion. That should be a whole thing. It's like trying to understand it and giving people resources for like how to stay up to date with this stuff. Because at the end of the day, the more digital this society goes, this is going to have to become more and more of a thing that everyday people are going to have to do, or somebody's going to have to be able to do it for them. But if the media is if the media is if they're bought and paid for by corporate interests, they can't be a watchdog anymore. And they're not, really. They don't. It doesn't seem like it, not at least the extent that they used to be.
Right.
And social media has tried to fill in the gaps, but it's social media. It's my aunt who still believes in QAnon is on there. You know what I mean? So it's like, we got to teach the children how to navigate this stuff, because it really is going to be, if it's not already a problem, it's going to be a problem. There needs to be a class to teach them about brain rot. It's just tough. You have to have like a psychology aspect to it. There's an ideology aspect to it. Like, it's a human nature problem at the end of the day. That's the tricky part.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, do we have anything else? Do we have anything else for the day? We wanted to thank you all for tuning in and listening. This is my last episode as a student. Gavin and I produced, this will be our 78th episode of the Not Just Politics podcast. To anyone that came on the show, thank you very much for your time and for the conversations. We both really appreciated it. And we're not stopping, to be clear. This isn't like we're done. We're taking a little bit of a break. Gavin's going home for the summer. I will be here in Pittsburgh for probably forever, for as long as I can see at least. And we're going to keep doing this when Gavin comes back in the fall. We are going to resume some sort of regular upload schedule, whatever he feels comfortable with doing. It's the last semester, obviously. That was part of the reason why, we apologize for that. But part of the reason why we had a slightly lower volume of episodes this semester was, people just got busy, guests had to reschedule, that kind of thing. But we've had a lot of fun. And like I said, we're not stopping. We'll be continuing to use this studio. So thank you to the CMI and Andy and Tara and Olivia and Wayne and Nick as well for helping to keep this place going and let us use the studio and all that. It's been great. They've been really good to us. And like I said, I should do a couple more thank yous on top of that. Just a couple of quick, shout outs right off the bat. Thank you to Bernie Ankney, all the heads of the School of Comm, again, Andy Conti, Chris Rawlinson, people that came on the show, people that gave us advice, that were very supportive. Kyle Archer, another guy Angelo Gargaro from Student Conduct, and the 8 other offices that he's running. He's keeping Point Park going basically on his own.
Just saw him today, too.
Yeah, I just spoke to him the other day. Seems like he's doing well, very busy, but starting up his own podcast called College Unfiltered. We'll, hopefully be doing something with him about that. He'll definitely be back on the show. But again, thank you to Kyle and Angelo. Again, just 2 other guys that were very supportive, gave us a lot of advice. Gave us each 4. Is that true? 3 for Kyle, 4 for Angelo. Right. So again, that's a lot. And again, to anyone that listened to episodes, thank you to the Paul brothers. Obviously, how can we not thank the Paul brothers for everything, for all this true day one fans.
Day one. First episode with Bernie, they were there.
They called us.
They were like, yo, we see this. We see this being the future.
And the only reason why we haven't gone on Impulsive yet is just because of scheduling issues. We obviously would have been on there.
That, and I feel like we take away from their thunder a little bit.
Yeah, we want to be respectful. They have their whole thing going on. But anyway, again, to everyone that reposts our episodes on social media and all over the place, and everyone that's listening, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot. Thank you to Bridge USA, Braver Angels, Fire, anyone that invited us out to conventions, covered our travel, lodging, whatever it was, that let us be in person with some of the awesome guests we've been able to talk to. Gavin, am I missing anybody? If I forget any names, I really am sorry. I didn't mean to, forget anybody, but I think those are really the main thank yous that I wanted to give. Again, we'll be back. We have a very exciting episode. I won't spoil with who, and, got to make sure it actually gets properly recorded first, but a very exciting episode coming next week on May 1st. So we're very excited about that. You all will see that. And we're just going to hope to be getting bigger guests, having fun still. Anything else, Gavin? Anything else? All right. I think that is it, folks. I have nothing else to say. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you like the new Roku City. Thank you to Point Park for 4 years of undergrad. I got the chance to do a lot of cool stuff I didn't think I would necessarily do. I did not take the traditional route, I guess, that a lot of my other peers took, but we've had a lot of fun, done a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening.